There's a very interesting pattern from 2017 that XRP looks to be setting up again, leading it to be very bullish and kind of outperforming the rest of the altcoins. I want to show you what I'm looking at on the XRP chart, why it's getting bullish in my opinion. I mean, it's been bullish ever since November 2024 when it really popped off with HBAR and with Cardano, but XRP has been holding up very, very well as Bitcoin's dropped, stocks dropped. We've kind of had all this controversy in the market with the economy and stuff. And I want to show you all the things I'm looking at on XRP that you can kind of replicate today's price action to 2017's price action. And I think we all know what happened after that 2017 pause leading into late 2017, early 2018. XRP absolutely exploded. For instance, let me show you here. I can show you just how much it moved. If we go to a weekly chart, you can see back here, 2017, XRP made another, 1,000% move. And so if we're looking for something along those lines today, how is it possible? What could we be looking at? And what is XRP doing today that gives us credibility as to something like that happening in the future? Okay. This is what I am watching. This is the daily chart for XRP. I think this is really interesting. I like to look at the 30-week and the 40-week, or the 30-day and the 40-day moving average. You can see them right here. I have my 30 and my 40. You can see where the prices are as we move this mouse, and you can see that today, or the past week basically, XRP has gotten back above these moving averages. Now this is a very early sign of health in the market. When we combine this with the weekly chart, we're going to get a lot of bullish indicators of what XRP is doing. But you can see how this daily version of the 30 and 40 week moving average can be, it can give some false positives. You can see back here in March of 2025, it did come up and then break back below. In it looks like March again, it did the same thing. And you can see how now we're getting above, kind of maybe durably holding above that 40-day moving average. And this is just a sign for me about what is to come. What's really good about this price action is that XRP is holding on to this support level, okay? And hopefully it is breaking out of this descending down sloping trend line that's kind of been bouncing off for the past couple months. And at the same time, these moving averages are starting to move horizontal. As moving averages move horizontal, we typically get a change in trend. You can see that up here. You can see that in previous sections. Look at how horizontal XRP was here before it really blasted off. Horizontal moving averages are the key. And so we have a lot of evidence of what's going on here. I have lots of support. Now we're making moving averages support. I think on this daily chart, if XRP can make the 30-day cross above the 40-day and hold that as a support line, it has no reason to not come back up here and test about $3.50, $3.40. This is just the daily chart though. When we combine this with a weekly analysis, you can see how this gets even more bullish on a very long-term time horizon, all right? And so what we're looking at here is kind of the same setup that we've seen in 2017. I want to show you how this setup to me looks a lot like this setup right here, which we know what happened after that, a giant 1,000% price move upwards, okay? So when we take all that we were just talking about on the daily chart and we pair it over to the weekly chart, you can see how we have this big support line here that XRP is using that's actually very historical support. You can see 2021 touched it as resistance, 2018 got all the way up here, and 2018 actually had a wick up here that we're using for our top end resistance, and then it had another little accumulation zone or another good pivot spot right here where price wicked above and then wicked back below. This is another good area of support that is about 5 years or so of support, 7 years of support. So that's very historical support that is going to be very hard to break. And you can see that here on the weekly chart, just like the daily chart, XRP is starting to break above this descending trend line that we have. It's starting to break above it this week as Bitcoin is doing the same thing. So it's very interesting and very bullish how some of these leading altcoins are going to follow Bitcoin the fastest. What's also really great about this XRP chart is that it's holding above the 30-week moving average and the 40-week moving average. These are very long-term indicators. These 30 and 40-week moving averages help us identify what stage of the market XRP or any coin is in, right? Is it in accumulation? Is it growing? Is it in distribution? Or is it declining? This is a sign of growth. Being over the 30-week moving average is a sign of growth. Let me show you back here. Back in, the first cycle XRP was around, really that 2016, 2017 cycle. You can see how it rode the horizontal for about a year. From 2016 to 2017, it rode a horizontal moving average before breaking above in early 2017. Well, as it was above, it was straight stage 2 growth. Then it had a little consolidation period. Sometimes you have to digest a big move like that, and it broke back into the moving averages before breaking up again, never closing below the moving averages. But in 2018, as price came back into the moving averages, it didn't have that same kind of luck. It didn't have that same kind of energy, and it broke below, closed below, and then failed to get above. This, either this section right here or this section right here, would be the knife in the coffin, the last nail in the coffin of XRP before you know that price is going to go down much further, because you can see how price here failed to get back above that 40-week moving average. This chop is a good sign to just go ahead and sell and get out of your position, especially after a 2,000 or so percent gain that's over here. So what's happening relevant to that today? You can see even in our 2021 cycle, XRP got above those 30 and 40 moving averages before going up, but the move we know was kind of, not as powerful as everyone would have liked to see in 2021. That brings us to today. Since about 2022, 2023, XRP has been moving sideways all the way to 2024. That's about a 2-year base. That's a very big base along these moving averages. And as price broke above the 30-week moving average and broke out of this ascending trend line, it had massive price appreciation. If you would have bought right here, as it did both of those, broke above the 30 and broke above the trend line right about here, you could have locked in a profit of about 280% in about 10 weeks. That's very, very fast growth, very, very bullish potential. And so how does that lead us into today? What does that mean for today? It means that XRP is out of this base. It is growing, and it looks to be doing another one of these pullbacks into the moving average before what I assume to be another leg higher. Now we're assuming that it's another leg higher because Bitcoin's going up. We don't have a lot of things in the cycle that usually typically tell us that it's too risky or that the cycle should be over. And so to me, as of right now, we have to assume that support is support, so that this level right here at around $2 is good support for XRP, that these moving averages are good support, and this descending trend line is good resistance that XRP looks to be breaking out of. Now, this might take another week or two. It might take another week or two for XRP to really solidify this. It might come up, retest, come up, retest, come up again, something along those lines. But I really like what I'm seeing on this XRP chart as far as where price is going and what it's doing compared to the rest of the market. A couple final things I want to show you here on the chart, if we go back to the daily chart, is another really great indicator that we can use is the Mansfield Relative Strength Index. This is not like an RSI. This is a comparison of XRP to Bitcoin right here, Bitcoin as to what's a better asset to be in. This is kind of like the XRP Bitcoin chart, but this Mansfield RSI typically would take an altcoin and you can compare it against the market average. So for me, I put Bitcoin as the market average, right? Because we know about Bitcoin dominance and stuff like that. You can see here on the daily chart, XRP is kind of just at the zero line. It and Bitcoin are performing hand in hand. You can see all these different changes in colors. Back here in late 2024, XRP was outperforming Bitcoin. But when you take this to a weekly chart, it gets very interesting about when XRP outperforms and how it outperforms. You see back here in the 2017 cycle, XRP did a great job of outperforming Bitcoin for about a year, right? For about a year. But what's really interesting is it came up, had this dip, and then continued higher, outperforming Bitcoin. And so what we're seeing today is XRP is, relatively speaking, doing better than Bitcoin, and it has been since about late 2024. What I'd be interested to see here is, does XRP come down, touch the zero line before heading back up higher? We can also compare all of this on the weekly chart to the XRP Bitcoin chart. You can see we have about two main levels of, one of resistance and one of support here, and you can see how XRP typically comes down here to about the 589 Satoshi level, and typically will come all the way up here to around the 9,000 Satoshi level when it's very, very bullish. And so we're about at the halfway point here for XRP, and it looks like compared to Bitcoin, XRP is in a stage 2 uptrend, just like it is against USD, moving back into the 30-week moving average, and the expectation there would be that it would touch the moving average and get some more, have some catalyst, I guess, over the summer to go up higher, and therefore throughout the rest of the cycle continue higher against Bitcoin until eventually it cuts through and breaks below the moving average. Now, how do we invalidate this? How do we say, well, that sounds great, but against what metric would we say, well, that just didn't happen? What you can look for on the daily chart as an initial indicator is you can see if the way that all of that stuff that I just said gets invalidated is if daily the XRP price breaks back below the 40 and the 30 week and comes down here, breaks back into this descending trend line and breaks below this support around $2 for XRP. That would invalidate this whole thing. That would put XRP back into a caution mode. On the weekly chart, XRP gets into a caution mode if it falls below the 40-week moving average. So what we're probably going to expect to see here is this kind of moving average come up here and this moving average kind of come up here if everything just kind of goes the same. Well, if price breaks down into the 30, it's not so bad. It's okay, not the best news, but it's not like the end of the world. If the price then breaks below the 40 and the next week does not confirm back above it, if it doesn't do that and it comes up the next week and touches the 40 and then falls lower, that is a big no-no. That is a definition of kind of like a stage 3, stage 4 transition and would put XRP back into bearish territory. So what I would be looking at if I were you, what is XRP doing around this line? This week looks really good, getting it back above the moving averages. Can the next week or two hold above this support line, hold above this downward trend line, and hold above the 30 and the 40-week moving average? That would be a lot of bullish catalyst to see XRP get back up here to around the $3.50 area again, right? That's a great target to go up to. And then after that, if it breaks above that high, who knows how high it can go. This is what I've been watching on XRP. I did an XRP price prediction video. I would like to revise that and do another one. I'll link it at the top here if you haven't seen it already. But that's what I think about XRP and the bullish territory it's in right now. It looks like it's repeating that 2017 move that we saw back over here. And it looks like this is a very close representation to what happened in 2017 as to what's happening today. Drop a comment down below if you like the XRP content. I would appreciate a like and a subscribe. And definitely we will see you in the next one for more XRP and crypto content.